Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, the other day on Tucker Carlson's monologue, he was going on about how he thinks the GOP needs to run on two very important issues: crime and immigration.
So let's say, again, just for the sake of argument, that you ran a campaign on illegal immigration and crime. Now, these are two issues that didn't just arise out of nowhere. They're the product of policies the Democratic Party put in. They were intentional outcomes. We have millions of people coming in illegally, and we have a lot more murders than we had 2 years ago. These two issues, immigration and crime, don't simply annoy voters, though they very much do. These two issues threaten the existence of our society. So maybe you should run on them. That seems reasonable, but that's not what they're doing. Oh no.
And he's totally correct, folks. Now, of course, that's not to say don't run on the economy and other important issues, absolutely, but Republicans need to understand where they win. They need to stop playing the Democrat game, feeding into race narratives and all kinds of culture war narratives, and focus on what's actually important, because guess what, folks? Historically, that's how you win elections, and those are the major issues where Democrats crumble. I mean, totally fall apart. And speaking of Democrats falling apart, and speaking of why this should be a major campaigning focus, we're now getting reports that Democrat cities are falling apart much worse than initially expected. Of course, we've been following the rise in crime, absolutely, but now it seems as though the huge increase in crime in major metropolitan Democrat areas is having a major bleed-over effect that's starting to seriously impact their local economies. In other words, Democrat cities are crumbling because people don't feel safe anymore. This is a winning issue because it's a righteous issue that people actually care about, and the rise in crime and the facts behind it are exactly what we're going to cover in this video. Let's talk about the continued collapse of Democrat cities. We've got some stuff to get into, folks, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so take a look at this fascinating report right over here. Democrat-led cities see deserted downtowns, surging crime as residents flee. American cities such as San Francisco, Cleveland, and Portland rank high among Democrat-led metropolises that have become barren of human activity in the wake of record-high crime, homelessness, and poor public services. According to the Daily Mail, the downtown and urban centers of major U.S. cities have seen an activity drop of nearly 50% according to a study by the Institute of Governmental Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. The study tracked the cell phone activity of roughly 18 million Americans and compared the data with the movement in big cities before the COVID pandemic. San Francisco, ranked highest as its downtown, only experienced 31% of human activity in 2022, with Cleveland coming in second with 36% activity, Portland coming in third as its urban city center had 41% activity. All of these cities have experienced record high crime levels in the past 2 years, and all three followed, quote, defund the police efforts after Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. Folks, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that Democrat cities are dying, at least the activity. I mean, we know that people are moving out of these cities at an astonishing rate, but the crime and the lawlessness and the craziness has become so clearly completely out of control that people don't even want to leave their homes anymore. It's insane. They're becoming barren wastelands. And look, I have seen this sentiment so many different times from people who are totally apolitical or people who aren't necessarily involved in the political realm, from California, Portland, New York, and other areas, saying something like, we don't go out anymore because we're scared we're gonna get robbed. It's a sentiment that people feel in these cities, as if they can't travel safely within their own city of residence, and it's leading to a total collapse. I mean, we've covered the effects, especially in San Francisco, on businesses being robbed and ransacked, which by the way happened once again, I believe in Los Angeles at a 7-Eleven. Take a look at this.
Now we're getting a first look at surveillance video from inside a 7-Eleven store ransacked by a group of people back on Monday.
But now we're seeing a secondary compounding effect that small businesses and restaurants are probably feeling, as basic foot traffic is down nearly 60% in some major cities. That is insane. That's terrible for the economy. And when speaking about this type of stuff, I usually like to use the state of Florida to represent the opposite side of the argument. And the clear reality is here that Florida is booming while Democrat cities are crumbling. And we're not just talking about Miami, we're talking about everywhere in Florida. Nearly every single county is booming. booming. From South Florida to Central Florida, East, West Coast, all the way up to Northern Florida. And I've even experienced it myself. I have a vacation home in Florida. I spend a lot of time in the winters there. And of course, during the winter, all of the snowbirds come down to spend time in the beautiful Sunshine State. The last 2 years have been absolutely crazy. I mean, it's nearly impossible to get a restaurant reservation. The unemployment rate is one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in the entire nation. The entire state, every single city is booming, while Democrat cities are crumbling and struggling. And it's an absolute shame, because if you take politics out of the equation, New York is an awesome place. I mean, it is the center of American capitalism. California is probably one of the most awesome places on the planet, if you omit the politics. But these places have become disaster zones. And now we have the cell phone data to back it up. I mean, in general, we have the data to back it up. I was watching this Fox News debate or Fox News discussion, interview, whatever you want to call it. The issue of crime arose, and the copium is just incredible. Take a look at this.
I mean, we have the video. We've shown it. We don't really need to show it again.
Yeah.
This guy's punched the guy 1,000 times. The problem here is that he confessed to the crime. We have video of the crime. He was on lifetime parole, and he is now back on the streets. That in itself, Lisa, is a crime.
Well, absolutely, Trace. And this is one of the reasons people like me have left New York City. I moved to Florida. It's not just the soft on crime policies of the left. It's not just the defund the police stuff. It's deeper and worse than that. The left has embraced criminals. They have lionized them. They have idolized them.
Well, this is a problem for the left and the right. The reality is that crime is up around the country. And New York City is still one of the safest big cities on the face of the planet.
He claims New York is one of the safest major cities. I mean, sure, per capita, New York isn't the worst offender when it comes to violent crime, but that's not even the point. The point is the lawlessness, and the point is the increase in crime, the hate crimes, the businesses being destroyed, people being robbed, people being attacked in the subway system, the overall dirtiness, which of course New York has always been dirty. But if you take a look at some of the videos in subway carts, the subway system is starting to look almost post-apocalyptic, with heroin addicts sleeping and dirty stuff all over the place and crazy people all over. Of course, it's not as if it's a new thing in New York City, but it's becoming worse, and that's the point. People say, well, Florida is more violent per capita. Well, you know, the difference is Florida is improving, and also most of the violence in Florida is in very specific counties or even boroughs within counties, whereas in New York City, it's starting to bleed over, and the crime is affecting everyone everywhere. Soaring crime hits all 5 New York City boroughs, including the posh Sex and the City West Village. When it comes to Florida, we're seeing the opposite. Florida crime rates dropped for the 50th straight year. That was for the year 2020, and it's been pretty consistent for decades. Florida is getting safer. Taxes are low, it's beautiful, the unemployment rate's the lowest it's ever been, there's opportunity, business is thriving. Democrat cities, the exact opposite. Every single index, every single metric, every measure of good policy and good governance and a high standard of living is dropping down, and it's not a coincidence. I mean, here's one of the hundreds of headlines that we've covered. California gives parole to man who tried to bury 26 kids alive. Violent career criminals being let back on the streets. Laws just straight up not being enforced. Crime being totally enabled. Honestly, bail reform laws being a small part of the problem. I mean, the problem in general is the apologist nature of the left in their view of criminals. It's all coming at the expense of regular tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. These cities are becoming complete disaster zones. And now we're seeing that foot traffic in certain places is anywhere between 30 to 39% of what it used to be based on cell phone records and data, or geo-tracking data. This is one of the greatest Democrat blunders, and I guess the conclusion point for the video is that the GOP must exploit this weakness. Don't give in to the culture war nonsense or the slanderous media games of the left. Hammer them on crime. Run on a tough on crime policy program, because the Democrats are losing on this issue even in their own backyard, in their own states, in their own cities. The proof is in the pudding, folks. There's a reason why hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing these states for the greener pastures of states that are ran by Republican governors. I mean, for Pete's sakes, while crime is completely out of control and people are looking for leadership, what do you get in New York State? New York governor signs new law banning, quote, gendered language for professions. An absolute slap in the face, an absolute joke. And if this type of stuff can't be exploited politically to lead to major major change in Republican victory, then the Republican establishment is just as bad and just as incompetent as we might think it is. That's what I got for you guys, though. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you're up for it. I'm gonna get back to work, though, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.